Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Best Books Ever. I'm Tyler, and we're going to be covering part 3 and 4 of The Hero of Ages, Brandon Sanderson. Big part. Next part, though, is the final part. That's also a pretty big one. Didn't realize that. But yeah, this part, chapters 34 through 58, 34 through 58. A lot of stuff. A lot of stuff with this one. We are left in a state of uh, worry, I would say, to say the least. Pretty much every character, a state of worry. And I feel like that's a just like a common thread throughout this entire series. I'm trying to think back to like the end to every part of this, of all three books. I'm like, was there ever a part where we left it and we were like, yeah, everything's going right? Because I feel like even probably their biggest win ever was Vin killing the Lord Ruler. And that happens, right? And then even like the first book ends with all of that being true. And we're still like, something doesn't feel right, you know? Um, so yeah. So here we're going to continue it. Lots of good stuff today. We're going to, as we always do, start with the end. And that has a lot to do with Spook. Spook being a much bigger character than he was in the first and second books, really coming to his own, really being, at least in this book, and as the book goes on, as the chapters go on, a lot more like Kelsier than really anyone else has been. Um, but this does end with Spook almost dying, right? Or maybe dead, actually. We don't know. I mean, because he sort of almost dies and then doesn't, and then now he kind of maybe does again. We don't know. Again, I feel like, and no future spoilers, obviously, just going off of what was in these chapters up until this point, um, I feel like if Spook did die here, we would know, because I feel like Brandon has done a really good job of um, us being super sure when a character dies. Although, I guess it's not true because Docs sort of died in the same fashion. Obviously not being burned to death, but like there was a moment where he was in like the planning room when the Koloss were attacking, and it was like him like accepting it or whatever, and then they're being like, oh, it was then everything went black or something like that. And we cut away, and it wasn't until like I think like a few chapters later, or maybe like a couple chapters later, after like Vin has come back and saved everyone and really helped, where I think like someone, maybe like Ham, comes back and talks to someone and I was like, yeah, Docs is dead. So I guess in that moment we did technically see Docs die, but I guess there has been deaths where they weren't super like it's happening, other than like Clubs, for example, where he gets like cut in half, you know. So I guess, on second thought, Spook could be dead. He ran to the building that was on fire, extinguish his tin, and his plan was to, at the very least, even if it doesn't end his death, he's going to uh, hit, Sazed's lever and cause all the water to fall out. That way they can use the water, for its original intent and purpose, but also for this specifically to take the water and put out all the fires. Um, in a way, again, very much like Kelsey, very much like a character who's like, you know what, I'm gonna do this for the greater good. If it costs me my life, then it just is what it is, Um, other than that, we also had Spook remove the metal from himself, which is all starting to come together, you know. Remove the metal. We see that Kelsier was not in fact Kelsier, which now that it's here, I can finally talk about it because obviously I knew that. Um, you kind of go back and for anyone reading this for the first time with me, um, if you go back, you can probably pick up on a few things of like, there's no way this is Kelsier, you know? One thing I wanted to mention when I'm pretty sure it was in these chapters actually. Obviously didn't, I didn't write it down because I wasn't sure if uh, Kelsier turns out to be ruined in this part or not for his next part. Um, but there was a moment where, quote unquote, Kelsier, he told uh, he told Spook when they were in the burning building to kill. I think it was in the burning building. There's one point where Kelsier, who was actually ruined, told Kelsier, or told a lot of names, told Spook to kill some like ska people or something, and I just felt that really odd. Obviously, on the second read, where it's like Kelsier wouldn't have done that. I don't know. There's a very weird thing about that because yes, he cared about killing nobility, and I guess he was after people who would have killed nobility as well. I don't know. There's a weirdness about him, like telling kill him, kill everyone, and it's just like I don't know if Kelsier was really that far out of it, especially as we know Kelsier now. We know that Kelsier changed at least just a little bit by the time he died, you know. So I think if Kelsier did, come back as, as like a ghost or a spirit or whatever, having all of his prior knowledge, there are some things that even like, like Quellion, who does everything for the, for the survivor, and he's like, Ska ruling, Ska killing nobility, all that stuff. I think there are some things that even Kelsier would disagree with his own previous teachings of. Um, so anyway, like, that goes all the way back to us finding out that was ruin, us finding out that he was seemingly able to talk to Sazed, or not Sazed, Spook and Quellion through the metal spike. Because we even see Quellion sort of like come out of a daze after he took the spike out. So that's sort of linking some things together, We start to know why he's putting these spikes in people, which we already kind of knew because we know that Marsh put the spike in Penrod. But now we know a little more like proven truths of like, okay, these spikes in them, and we sort of saw it from the, from the little quotes in the beginning of every chapter, but like those spikes are very powerful, not only giving them allomancy, but also letting Ruin have more of a direct line to each person. So um, very sad in the moment, I think, because Spook, thinking that's Kelsier and thinking that he's rising up and finally being useful, and even be able to talk to Kelsier, like seemingly that hasn't happened to Vin or Elend or Sazed or anyone else from what Spook can tell. I mean, obviously it could have happened and they could have hidden it, but for Kelsier to come back and talk to Spook, it's like, okay, here we go. Maybe maybe he did this for a reason. Maybe maybe I am special. Very sad, but also needed to happen, because now in hindsight, look at all that stuff. Ruin was trying to mess him up. This was not going to end well. We even saw him break down at the end, where he was just like telling Spook to just kill people, and I can give you powers. Put the spike through them into you, so you can get the like coin shot ability. It's like, this is not how this should be. Um, but yeah, it kind of goes further to what Rune is doing with everyone else. If he was doing that with Spook, imagine how many other people have spikes in them that he's controlling. Again, we already know of Penrod. Yeah, very scary stuff. Let's see, anything else? Let me just mark these off. Anything else Spook related? Oh, and I guess just to close that out, did Spook succeed? We didn't really get confirmation of that. We know that he threw his body against the lever or whatever, but we didn't get from his perspective him seeing like the water rushing out, or the gate opening or anything. So hopefully he succeeded, and hopefully he's not dead. he kind of got burned alive. um, I don't think the whole tin thing would have increased the damage because it's not really like an external thing. It's more of just like his feeling of things, not actually like what the thing does to him. But that being said, not not a safe, very safe thing to do. So we'll see. Hopefully he's not dead, and hopefully he can at least enjoy doing the good, right? Um, I want to cover that last. So I guess maybe some smaller stuff. One thing I wanted to mention, the whole like Koloss thing. We did learn about that. That was huge. We found sort of the secret of the Koloss. Um, they are made from regular humans. You kind of like spike the two humans together, I guess, and you kind of like take the skin from the old Koloss and put it around the other human, and sort of, that whole thing. Um, Gruesome. It seems like out of the three creatures, Kandra, Inquisitors, and Koloss, Kandra are the only ones that seem like sort of normal and like not sick to make. Where it's like, oh, you just kind of put the spikes in the mist wraiths and then they gain sentience, and over time they're able to form bodies, right? Koloss, you have to like take the skin off a dead Koloss and put it and like spike it around a dead human. Disgusting. And then Inquisitors, you have to take a living Allomancer and spike through its body to another living Allomancer, killing the first one and enhancing the second one. But it's all pain. It's all pain for everyone. I guess at the very least, when it comes to Koloss, everyone in the situation is dead, so there's no pain or suffering. But yeah. But yeah, learning about that, I feel like at this point we now kind of know. I mean, we know how everything is made now, which is good because there's always secrets and mysteries and stuff with this world, and that does cause a lot of confusion and a lot of like roadblocks for our protagonists. Um, a huge one that we're going to talk about with Vin in just a minute. But yeah, I think the secrets of everyone are kind of out now. I don't know if there's anything else. I could be wrong. I don't remember this book perfectly. But yeah, I think that's pretty much it. So we kind of know the creation of all these beings, um, preservation of ruin and all that stuff. So interesting stuff there. That was kind of the last one, right? Like, how are Koloss made? How do we get more of these things? Why do they exist? Yeah. A lot of stuff to do with ruin. It's pretty much all the rest of my notes have to do with ruin. We will talk about Elend for a second. Elend just got, 30,000 Koloss. A lot of internal monologue going here. Him sort of trying to figure out what he should be doing, what he's doing right, if anything he's doing even matters. One thing I wanted to note is him sort of remembering his conversation with Vin, where Vin is like, everything you're doing is temporary. Because when you think about it, you can win, these battles, you can get support for your city and cause people not to starve and all that stuff, but we're fighting something even greater than that. Like, we're fighting ruin. None of this matters on the ground if ruin wins. If the ash just kills everybody, right? While I don't think that what Elend's doing is completely worthless, I do understand his like worry for what he's doing, right? And his hesitation. He does even break down, talking to preservation. Not really a whole lot to talk about there. I didn't really make a note of it to like talk about it, but because he doesn't really learn anything. He just kind of, everything he sort of confirms is stuff that he already sort of assumed, and then there's some information where he didn't know, but it doesn't really help, like Like he kind of learns that Ruin is doing the ash mounts. It's like, okay, we could have guessed that, and it doesn't really help us anyway that we know. Um, the one sort of interesting thing, I guess, is the mists. Preservation says that neither him nor Ruin is causing the mists, or like causing them to kill people. So it's very interesting there. It sort of says like, sorta, not really. But again, even with that not super helpful bit of information, although it is new, does it really help us at all? Like, I don't think they have any way of stopping it from happening, whether they know the source or not. Because guess what? If it's preservation, if it's Ruin, what does it matter? We just have to stop Ruin in general. Um, but yeah, he gets more Koloss because his plan is to try to intimidate or maybe even just straight up attack Yeoman. Don't know if that'll work, but he does have a lot of Koloss. 30,000 more Koloss attached to his. I think they had 10,000 left. Was that it? Where they had 20,000 and then half of them killed each other. So now it's 10,000. I think that was it. So if that's the case, 40,000 Koloss. That is quite a bit. Quite a bit of Koloss. But the only other thing is that he was confused. He couldn't really get control of him. So he's like, oh, there's an Inquisitor. But then he got control. So he's like, is there an Inquisitor? Like, what was happening there? Did the Inquisitor just give up? Yeah, interesting stuff there. Maybe an Inquisitor will come at some point. I don't know. Or maybe he just didn't, maybe he was sort of too scrambled, sort of thinking about other stuff, thinking about Vin, thinking about the army, thinking about the world, thinking about, where his emotional elements, he wasn't focused enough to take control like he normally does until he did. But yeah, that's kind of where Elend's at the end of this book, or at the end of this part, is he's, and seemingly he's going to get more Koloss. He's going to have an army of a 6-figure army of Koloss. And I don't know if that's going to work or not. I mean, I think it would definitely intimidate Yeoman, but I also feel like, I don't know, you kind of go back and forth on it, right? Where initially, yes, that would intimidate Yeoman, but is Yeoman sure enough that he's like, well, Elend is just trying to intimidate me. He's not going to actually attack the whole city because he doesn't want, there's no way Elend wants the destruction of the city. Like he wants us to listen to him and be under his command, but he doesn't want the city, just like in rubble, in debris, that's not what he wants. But then you flip back again and you're like, I have his wife. So, what is of greater concern to him at this point? For me, it's like, hey, if the city's destroyed, but it ends up with me getting my wife back, as well as getting access to the cache. Again, it's tough for him because he doesn't want to just kill senselessly. There's even a moment where one of the Ska, after the whole Koloss thing in the village, the one Ska asked if he was the Lord Ruler, and he says close enough, and it's like, oh man, it sucks how much he thinks he's being close to Lord Ruler. There are a lot of similar decisions, but I don't think that's the worst thing because as we see more and more, the Lord Ruler wasn't a terrible guy, and the more we learn that he might have even done a lot of his more evil things because of the corruption of Ruin for 1,000 years being in the back of his mind. So we'll see what happens with Elend. Then everything else is pretty much Ruin related for the most part, except for one thing. So we'll start with that, and then we'll just go down the line of Ruin because that's big Ruin part. Tensoon is on his way back. He has this scene where he comes back as Kelsier and everything to get information. That was interesting. I think it just goes to show like Kelsier's influence, where Kelsier's been dead longer than he was alive in this series, right? Like he was alive for like 80 to 90% of the first book, and there's 3 books, you know? So, like, at most, when all this is all said and done, at most, if we're being generous, Kelsier was alive during 33% of this series, and yet he still seems to be the one, like, like core of all of this. Um, Even more so than like Vin, right? So that's really cool to kind of bring him back. Um, Other than that, what Tensoon does in this part, I'm not really that interested in. Like he's trying to find Vin, whatever. He uses the bones, whatever, right? Um, I'm more so interested in his purpose because he feels like he has information that could save the world essentially. That he needs to get to Vin. That I think is what we're supposed to ponder. Like what information, what could he know about Ruin? I'm assuming. Like, does he know how to beat Ruin? Because that would be insane. And how does he know? Like, do all Khandra knows, or just him? Because he is third generation, so he is one of the eldest generations. So maybe like being a lot closer to the creation of Khandra. Because he did say that like he was present when when the first contract was first made. So maybe he does know something. Um, but like what could it be? Like what could he know? Again, maybe he's just overestimating his information. Maybe he just feels like there is something that will help them. But I mean, there's no way he just has the secret where he's like, oh yeah, here's how you beat Ruin. Like, there's no way. That'd be insane. Um, but again, that is why I think we're supposed to be very excited and very eager to see Tensoon, get back to Vin and tell him whatever or tell her whatever he knows. Unfortunately, his part does end with him getting some slightly incorrect information where something very important is happening in that city, but Vin and Elend are not there, right? Spook, Sazed, Breeze, Alrian, they're there, and that's cool. But he's not going to find Vin there. I mean, unless somehow Vin gets out of this situation and they go and meet up with Sazed and them in time for Tensoon or something, but that seems unlikely. I also don't know why they would do that. But I mean, hey, maybe at the very least, Tensoon reaching Sazed and them, they could do something with the information. I'm not sure. I don't know. But we'll have to keep an eye on Tensoon because, again, seemingly he has some very vital information. And yeah, like I said, everything else is pretty much Ruin related. One smaller thing that I think is very important and kind of changes a lot of things from just the first chapter of this book, or maybe the second chapter. I don't think Vin was in the first chapter. I think she was the second chapter. We learned that Ruin has been talking to Vin this whole time. The majority of the time when Vin heard Reen's voice in her mind, it was actually Ruin. So now that changes so many things where you can see that now Ruin was influencing her all the way back, probably before she even met Kelsier, I would guess. And, that just adds insult to injury because now it's like Vin was being pulled on for years. She was almost like groomed to be in the position that she is in now. Or I guess not even really now, but at the very least, killing Lord Ruler. I mean, that's really all Ruin needed was Lord Ruler to be out of here. No, that's not true. Lord Ruler needed to be out of here. And then, I guess even more important, and a result of Lord Ruler being dead is him being freed from the Well of Ascension. Interesting, though, of how he knew that Vin would do this, like why he chose Vin. I think that's a big question on her mind as well. I think she even asks it to herself a couple times in this part, where she's like, why me? Like, why Why does he have interest in me? Why am I the one? Um, yeah. But yeah, I just thought that was interesting because Reen's voice being in her head has obviously faded over time because she's learned to trust, to love all these other people, his family, friends, all this stuff. But now learning that the majority of the time it was actually Ruin kind of influencing her, nudging her ever so slightly, um, really hurts, I think. Um, another big thing with Ruin, we do finally get that one cachet, the final one, right? And we learn that the Lord Ruler has no idea how to beat Ruin. Or if he does, he for some reason is not sharing it. Um, we see the last plaque, and there's no information there. It's just Lord Ruler basically apologizing and feeling very defeated and just like, man, um, I don't know, sorry. And his last gift is everything so far, right? All the cachets, the supplies, and his last gift is just that. And hopefully that stuff, the supplies, will give whoever's reading it time to maybe figure out a way to beat Ruin, because he said 800 years at that point of him writing that, and he doesn't know, he can't. Very frustrating for the reader, very frustrating for Vin, because one, it seems like, or it feels like we've been betrayed, right? The Lord Ruler has this web of caches with information, albeit information that we've already known, but for you to number them and get to the last one, and you would hope that it would be like, okay, here's some rock solid info on this. Like, the whole reason these caches exist is because this situation, a situation where you're dead and Ruin is taking over. And so for you to make this and then it to end with, yeah, sorry, I don't know. Not even a hint, not even a guess, possible paths that maybe you've tried to take in the past, just you apologizing and being like, yep, humanity's over. That's not cool. But I think also a mixture of frustrating, but also like curiosity and maybe a little relief is finding out the Lord Ruler really didn't care for his people. Again, it seems over time he was corrupted by Ruin, but he really did care about people. He really did try to make a system that worked and kept everyone alive. And, as these chapters have gone on in this book and even the last book, we see that things generally not really better that the Lord Ruler is gone. Lord Ruler had this system where, the Ska, which is the majority of the population, were slaves, and that sucked. But post Lord Ruler, while they're not slaves anymore, like, they're not living well. Like, there's not enough food and water for people. There's not enough places to live. War has broken out, so that makes everyone's lives worse. People are dying, losing loved ones. There's no stability, right? And that's why we get to Yeoman, and people generally enjoy Yeoman's rule, because while he's brought back Lord Ruler's old ways, people may not disagree, or people may not agree with it. It's something familiar. It's something for people to do, and he's, up until now, he's been able to keep them fed and hydrated, and like, stability, right? Yeah, it's just, again, I mentioned before how this part ends with so much worry, so much pessimism, and this is no different. Them finally getting through this whole thing, expecting some sort of answer, and not even the ATM is here, or if it is, then Yeoman moved it, right? Which may be an easy assumption. He does have a little bead of ATM hanging from his face, but yeah, not good. Not the ending you would have wanted for this little scavenger hunt. The only bit of information that I did write down from that the Lord Ruler had that may be something big, is Lord Ruler says that Ruin's power is not complete, and he's hidden his body very well. So there's two things there to break down. First, his power's not complete. Um, at this point, we don't really know what that means. His power's not complete. It's not at his full, which would make sense if you want to connect the dots, right? Because seemingly, if Ruin had full power, he would just snap his fingers and the world would end, right? Um, maybe, because we do see Preservation die, and we have that confirmed through one of the, the little paragraphs before one of the chapters, where it says, like, Elend was talking to a dying god or whatever. So maybe that finally brought Ruin to his full power, but I feel like as soon as that would happen, like Ruin would like feel something and be like, it is done, and then just end the world. Although we'll see a little later, which we'll talk about in a second, Ruin seems to want to be remembered for this, which is strange with like a dying, seemingly you're going to just destroy the whole planet, so there's no one that'll remember you. But he does like to relish in the moment, so maybe he knows he can, but he wants everyone to know it. He wants everyone to feel it. He wants some sort of like presentation, some fanfare. But his power not being complete, and then Lord Ruler saying, "Oh, I hit his body," which again, in one of the little paragraphs before the chapters, whoever is talking, we don't know who's like writing this journal or whatever. They do say something about there being three parts, like a physical part, a spiritual part, and then like a mental part or something. So maybe Ruin needs his body to go like full power. Again, I don't know why that would be the case if Preservation is gone. Like if Preservation is dead, then and how Vin has sort of connected the dots to be like, oh, there's just like Allomancy, when there's a push, there's a pull. Even if Ruin wasn't at his full power, there's no one opposing him now, right? Like Preservation's gone, unless there's a third god. There's, some sort of like mediary. I don't think that's the case, but yeah, I don't know. I just find this important to note because Lord Ruler said it. He was like, "Hey, this sucks. I don't know how to beat him, but he's not at his full power, and I hit his body." I don't feel like I don't think Lord Ruler would say that if it wasn't important, not only to like the reader but also to Ruin. Like if you hit his body, if you hid something from Ruin, you would think Ruin would want it, right? It would be something of purpose. Yeah. So I don't know. I guess we'll keep an eye on it, and maybe it'll turn out to be nothing. Maybe it'll be like Ruin will be like, I don't care, doesn't matter. Preservation's dead. I'm killing everyone. Could be the case. And then the last note I have is, I sort of already mentioned it, but Ruin is gloating to Vin, believing he has already succeeded. Bad news for Vin and everyone, I suppose, at that point, where Ruin seems very confident. Why would he be gloating to Vin if he hasn't already felt like he won? Again, maybe he knows at this point that Preservation is dead. There's no one to stop him now. But again, there's that little like twinge of I just don't understand why he hasn't just won already. Unless it is, because Vin does think like there is some humanity in him. Maybe it is his own hubris that is causing him to not just destroy the world. Maybe he, again, like even in that moment when he was talking to Vin and the earthquake was happening, you assume it's him that's doing that. He was like sitting there and just enjoying the moment. So maybe that's what he wants to do. Maybe he really wants to sit because again, he's gone all this time since I would say since the world was created, waiting for Preservation to uphold their end of the bargain. But then also when the well was created, that was also a big moment, obviously, to be like, oh, you broke our bargain. Now it's on. You just wait. One of these days, even if it takes thousands of years, I will figure out a way to get out of here and I will destroy the world. Again, not not necessarily out of my own uh, desire to do it, but also because that's what we promised, and you broke the promise. I didn't do it. I didn't break nothing. I kept to my word. You're the one who did this. Um, and I do really like his recollection of that, because he's like, he talks to Vin, and Vin is all good and evil, and Ruin is like, this has nothing to do with good or evil. He says something to the effect of, good people, good men will kill just like bad men will kill. They just have different reasons for it. And that causes Vin to hesitate, because he's right. Like, how many people have you killed, Vin? How many people has Elend killed? How many people did Kelsier kill? You know? And you would describe yourself, Elend, Kelsier, as good people. So this has nothing to do with good and evil. It has to do with who we are. That's preservation, I'm ruin. And he makes some points about like things ending, right? Like a lantern going out, a pocket watch that eventually goes down. It just has to do with that. That's all it is. And also, again, in that, what actually happened, them having a bargain, preservation ruining, it's like, good man wouldn't have broken that. They would have honor. They would have, they would uphold their agreement. So again, it has nothing to do with good and evil. So yeah, that was good stuff. But yeah, again, just kind of ending with the doom and gloom of Ruin gloating, just sitting there and basking in his win, even though he says it has nothing to do with winning. It just has to do with, it is what it is, right? Very worrisome for our crew and just the planet. It's like he's so confident. I don't really know how they're gonna get. I mean, I know, but up to chapter 58, I don't know how they're gonna get out of this. I mean, Vin is trapped. She has no medals. There's nothing, unless someone comes to save her. Because again, I also love that moment where Ruin's like, I'm disappointed in you. The last time you were in a cage with no medals, it only took you a few hours or whatever to end up killing the Lord Ruler. I understand what he was saying with that, but in that scenario, when she did that, Sazed came on and saved her. I don't think Sazed's coming now. They're pretty far away from where Vin is. So again, I guess someone would have to save her. I don't know who. Maybe Elend. Elend is getting all those Koloss. We'll see what decision he makes. Other than that, I don't know anyone that's. I mean, everyone else is up north, right? So, and then yeah, I guess it's pretty much the two big things: is what's gonna happen with Vin, and what's gonna happen with Spook, right? In the house situation. Those two big situations that were sort of waiting with bated breath as to how they'll end. And yeah, it's tough, but that's why we have a next part and a final part. Next part, we will be covering chapters 59 through 82, including the epilogue as well. I don't really, I don't know. I'd love to hear your guys' predictions as to how this shakes out, because again, I'm very interested to see how Vin gets out of this, and like I said, I'm very interested to see if Spook hopefully alive, and also hopefully they succeeded in quelling the fires, and what happens with that city and everyone there, and what they do afterwards too, because it's like, okay, we got it, right? Hopefully we stop the riots and the fires and everything. Where do we go now? Do we go back to Phaedrix and help them? What is Elend going to do with his Koloss? Is he going to just invade? Is he going to try to scare them? Does Vin somehow escape? I don't know how that'd be possible. The only thing I could think of, because again, there's only two possibilities in my mind, right? With Vin escaping, is either Elend comes with the Koloss and just destroys everything, or maybe intimidates enough to be like, you better, I'll do it. You have my wife. You think I won't kill, but you have my wife. I'll do it. Or again, maybe Ruin is so confident that he just releases Vin. Well, I don't think he can do that though, because I don't think he can touch the physical world. right? I mean, I guess he could have somebody, right? Like maybe he has Yeoman, right? He can have a spike in him, right? Or an Inquisitor, right? Obviously, Ruin controls all the Inquisitors to maybe like release her, because he's like, it doesn't matter at this point. It doesn't matter what you do. There's nothing you can do to beat me. I've already won. Maybe that's how it goes. But yeah, very interested in all that. Let me know your guys' predictions, favorite moments from all these chapters that we just covered. And yeah, that's it. Like I said, I already forgot the chapters, but I already said it once. 59 through 82. I mean, I guess just the end of the book, right? Plus the epilogue. We always cover the prologues and the epilogues. And yeah, very excited to read that, finish the book, finish the series. Then we'll have some fun announcements next week as well as to what the next series we're doing, because this is the final book, you know? So that'll be fun too. That is it. Till next time, read the end. Come in with all your thoughts and feelings on not only the end of the book, but maybe also the series in hindsight, and maybe some ideas for what you'd want to what we want to cover next.